now 25 years ago, when I was helping to hire interns for Shavers Creek. And the question was, what do you do in your free time? And when I started asking that question, intern candidates, which are typically your age, people would say, oh, I love going for bike rides. I love being out with my friends. We go to movies. And now, asking that question, what do you do in your free time? And intern candidates saying, free time? What free time? I don't have free time. I don't have much of that. So how does that all come back to our story, right? The expectations of being busy. The idea that as I walk around campus, if I talk to other people who teach, professors or even more so tenured professors, then the conversation goes like this. Hey, how are you? Oh my gosh, I am insanely busy. It's always that. I'm insanely busy. You know, the usual. And then, like, I'm already planning dates for the fall. Well, I haven't taken a vacation in over a year. So it goes on like that, right? That's the trend that I'm hearing. It seems to me that sometimes busyness is a badge of honor. A tenured professor needs to be busy. The expectations that are put on those people are unrealistic. Publishing and writing and teaching. And so I'm busy, therefore I am important and valuable, and therefore I'm worthy of this job. Right? I'm worthy of having space here. Busy can become a contest. And that starts now at an early age. Maybe some of you experience that. Oh yeah, on Mondays I have flute lessons, and on Tuesdays and Thursdays I have dance class, you know, and then I'm in the chess club and the debate team, right? So having a lot of activities, I see it with my kids' friends. So sometimes it's this, you know, contest, busy. Sometimes it's the habit of being busy. Like when I actually take time to slow down, then I don't know what to do with myself because I'm just used to being busy. I give myself, I'm speaking for myself, I give myself lists and tasks to do, and once those are done, I go back and add some more because that's what I'm used to. I realize that if I'm not very careful, I could spend my life working on an epic to-do list and feeling irritated that that list never ends. Destination addiction, we've talked about that in here. Being in class to finish a class, being in college to finish college, taking your internship to finish the internship requirement, being in an apartment so you can have a house. How we talked about how somewhere happiness isn't something you're chasing. It isn't out there, and yet that's a hard feeling to fight sometimes. There's also a fear of slowing down. Right? Have any of you experienced this? Being afraid to slow down? There are two things I've experienced related to this. My story, I am afraid of I'm afraid of slowing down because if I do, then I'm going to get slammed with things that I should have been doing. So that's the first part. The other thing, the fear of slowing down, is that I've used busyness to numb my feelings of vulnerability that accompany unsettling truths about my life. So I'm hiding from myself by staying busy. Staying busy so that I don't have to face reality. So sometimes a fear of slowing down. And then sometimes a fear of missing out, right? anxiety that is an exciting or interesting event maybe currently happening elsewhere. It could be initiated by posts seen on social media. Maybe you're afraid to miss out on something and you choose to go, which makes your schedule more full. Is going what you really need to do for yourself? So sometimes this fear of missing out takes us out of the present moment. So let's slow down, and we're going to take in a video that Ben has ready for us.
Or if when you weren't okay with it, then just wait. You'll find it's fine to be alone once you're embracing it. We could start with the acceptable places, the bathroom, the coffee shop, the library, where you can stall and read the paper, where you can get your caffeine fix and sit and stay there, where you can browse the stacks and smell the books. You're not supposed to talk much anyway, so it's safe there. There's also the gym. If you're shy, you can hang out with yourself in mirrors. You can put headphones in. And there's public transportation, because we all gotta go places. And there's prayer and meditation. No one will think less if you're hanging with your breath, seeking peace and salvation. Start simple. Things you may have previously avoided based on your avoid being alone principles. The lunch counter, where you will be surrounded by chow downers, employees that only have an hour and their spouses work across town, and so they, like you, will be alone. Resist the urge to hang out with your cell phone. When you are comfortable with eat lunch and run, take yourself out for dinner, a restaurant with linen and silverware. You're no less intriguing a person when you're eating solo desserts and cleaning the whipped cream from the dish with your finger. In fact, some people at full tables will wish they were where you were. Go to the movies, where it is dark and soothing, alone in your seat amidst a fleeting community. And then take yourself out dancing, to a club where no one knows you. Stand on the outside of the floor until the lights convince you more and more and the music shows you that. Dance like no one's watching, because they're probably not. And if they are, assume it is with best and human intentions. The way bodies move genuinely to beats is, after all, gorgeous and affecting. Dance until you're sweating, and beads of perspiration remind you of life's best things. Dandle back like a brook of blessings. Go to the woods alone, and the trees and squirrels will watch for you. Go to an unfamiliar city, roam the streets, there are always statues to talk to, and benches made for sitting give strangers a shared existence, if only for a minute, and these moments can be so uplifting, and the conversations you get in by sitting alone on benches might have never happened had you not been there by yourself. Society is afraid of alone though, like lonely hearts are wasting away in basements, like people must have problems if after a while nobody is dating them. But lonely is a freedom that breathes easy and weightless, and lonely is healing if you make it. You could stand swathed by groups and mobs or hold hands with your partner. Look both further and farther in the endless quest for company. But no one's in your head, and by the time you translate your thoughts, some essence of them may be lost, or perhaps it is just kept. Perhaps in the interest of loving oneself. Perhaps all those sappy slogans from preschool over to high school's groaning were tokens for holding the lonely at bay. Because if you're happy in your head, then solitude is blessed and alone is okay. It's okay if no one believes like you. All experience is unique. No one has the same synapses, can't think like you, for this view would lead. Keeps things interesting, life's magic things emerge. And it doesn't mean you aren't connected. The community's not present. Just take the perspective you get from being one person in one head and really affects on it. Take silence and respect it. If you have an art that needs a practice, stop neglecting it. If your family doesn't get you or a religious sect is not meant for you, don't obsess about it. You could be in an instant surrounded if you need it. If your heart is bleeding, make the best of it. There is heat and freezing, be a testament.
So thinking about what slowing down, the opportunities that it might present for you. There's one more that we've talked a little bit about, how all those chemicals are rushing through our bodies, right? So there is an addiction, the busy addiction. Cortisol is the fight or flight hormone that influences and regulates our bodies and their responses. When stress is felt, the cortisol goes up, and that influences our blood sugar, our immune responses, our blood pressure, things that go on for our central nervous system. And when those cortisol levels remain high, then it sets a new normal for the body, being on the edge, right? Which is an addiction. The stress response is activated so often that our bodies don't have time to recover, return to normal lower levels. And this is what leads to what's called adrenal fatigue, the state when adrenal glands are exhausted and unable to produce adequate amounts of hormones, which can lead to fatigue and inflammation and sleep disruption and slow healing and poor digestion. So busy addiction is a thing too to consider. So neuroplasticity, the technology and the pace of culture are rewiring our brains, strengthening parts of the brain that help us to shift our attention quickly, diminishing the brain's capacity for concentration, reflection, critical thinking, and long-term memory. So no matter what the reason for the move, the pace, the busy that we're expressing, these things are happening. Our brains are trying to keep up. The brain is a very malleable organ, changing and growing connections all the time. And it's usually a good thing, helping us to adapt to our surroundings. And it's happening now. It's important that we see what we're doing to this so that we can make choices related to it. Our brain response is connected to our body response. So I struggle to concentrate to read. I can't focus. So I want you to think about this video that Ben's going to pull up now for us.
Our body, it goes, if we never get bored. It turns out that when you get bored, you ignite a network in your brain called the default mode. So our body, it goes on autopilot while we're folding the laundry or we're walking to work, but actually that is when our brain gets really busy. So this is my brain in an fMRI, and I learned that in the default mode, that is when we connect disparate ideas, we solve some of our most nagging problems, and we do something called autobiographical planning. This is when we look back at our lives, we take note of the big moments, we create a personal narrative, and then we set goals, and we figure out what steps we need to take to reach them. Here's boredom researcher Dr. Sandy Mann.
Once you start daydreaming and allow your mind to really wander, you start thinking a little bit beyond the conscious, a little bit into the subconscious, which allows sort of different connections to take place. It's really awesome, actually.
But now we chill out on the couch, also while updating a Google Doc or replying to email. Here's what neuroscientist Dr. Daniel Levison says we're actually doing.
Every time you shift your attention from one thing to another, the brain has to engage a neurochemical switch that uses up nutrients in the brain to accomplish that. So if you're attempting to multitask, doing 4 or 5 things at once, you're not actually doing 4 or 5 things at once because the brain doesn't work that way. Instead, you're rapidly shifting from one thing to the next, depleting neural resources as you go.
So a decade ago, we shifted our attention at work every 3 minutes. Now we do it every 45 seconds, and we do it all day long. The average person checks email 74 times a day and switches tasks on their computer 566 times a day. Researchers at USC have found they're studying teenagers who are on social media while they're talking to their friends or they're doing homework. And 2 years down the road, they are less creative and imaginative about their own personal futures and about solving societal problems. So the next time you go to check your phone, ask yourself, what am I really looking for? Because if it's to check email, that's fine, do it and be done. But if it's to distract yourself from doing the hard work that comes with deeper thinking, take a break, stare out the window, and know that by doing nothing, you are actually being your most productive and creative self. It might feel weird and uncomfortable at first, but boredom truly can lead to brilliance.
So maybe what we really need to consider is NOMO, the necessity of missing out. During COVID, we had the obligation. During COVID, we had the obligation of slowing down. And so it was an opportunity in some ways, as terrible as that time was for many of us. It gave me an opportunity to see and to feel and to experience some things that I hadn't had the chance to do before, right? I had the opportunity. I found places where I was doing things out of obligation, things that I didn't really want to be doing. It was a time for reflection. And so now that we have the time back, what are we doing? How are we using the time? Are the things I'm doing, are the things you're doing bringing you joy? So happiness for me is often synonymous with awareness, right? Being aware of all I have. Somebody brought up gratitude. All the things I have to be grateful for. It takes time. It doesn't happen when I'm busy. On a morning when I was trying to rush my preschooler, Luke, out to the car to get to preschool so that I could get to work, that morning we had a really heavy frost. It was so beautiful. Every blade of grass was highlighted with the frost. And Luke, in his little tiny shoes, went walking through the yard, and he turned around and looked back, and where he had walked, he had melted the frost. And it was a really cool thing to see. And he was ecstatic. And in that moment, I realized that I almost missed that opportunity with him. If I had scooped him up in my rush to the car, then we wouldn't have had that cool moment together in the midst of my busyness. So I know that when I'm in a rush at the grocery store, I'm much more likely to buy things that come in plastic. If I'm not taking time to cook a meal for my family that includes that sort of level of mindfulness, I tend to buy things I don't need. I'm also more likely to buy things that aren't good for me. So it's the green triangle again. It's making those connections, slowing down. So how can we bring all of these things together? The happiness, the health of Earth. I'd like you to take a real intense moment to sort of sink into this quote. No matter what has just happened or what will come in the future, I think even if you want to write this down, I think it's worth considering. No matter what has just happened or what will come in the future, why miss the full experience of the present moment? Remember back to the intern candidates? What do you do with your free time? I'm going to tell you a secret. It's all free time. It's all free time. Every single moment of every single day is free time. You get to choose. I get to choose. The way that Zach Bryan says it, years are just moments in a great big pile. That's the way it goes, right? The greatest day of my life. Years are just moments in a great big pile. So for your pack-back reflection this week, how we spend our days is how we spend our lives. I look forward to reading your responses, and I can't wait to see you on Sunday!